This is a nationwide emergency broadcast system drill. For the next 30 minutes, you will hear broadcasting on the two CONELRAD frequencies of 640 and 1240 kilocycles on your regular radio receiver. This message will now be repeated in Spanish for the benefit of Spanish-speaking residents in this area.
Atención, esta es una prueba de radio CONELRAD. Atención, esta es una prueba de radio CONELRAD. La transmisión normal se descontinuará ahora. La información de la defensa civil se transmitirá en la frecuencia 640 y 1240 en su cuadrante. Si usted no entiende inglés, trate de que alguien le traduzca el siguiente mensaje.
This is a nationwide emergency broadcast system drill being carried out by radio and television stations in cooperation with the Civil Defense Administration. We will now hear from the Mayor of New York City, the Honorable Robert F. Wagner.
Fellow citizens, the Civil Defense air raid warning sirens have just sounded the 3-minute wobbling take cover signal, initiating the public participation phase of the nationwide Civil Defense training exercise, Operation Alert 1961. Merely clearing the streets of pedestrians and the stoppage of traffic is not the purpose of these test exercises. It is intended that the public learn the sounds and meaning of the Civil Defense air raid warning sirens and to react intelligently when they are sounded in a public participation test by going to shelter in basements or inner corridors of structures away from windows. In time of actual emergency, this action may very well mean survival. Shelter, any form of shelter, is better than leaving oneself exposed to destructive elements. Persons in sheltered areas on the perimeter of a damaged area can survive. Those in actual fallout shelters have an even better chance of surviving. Civil defense is wholly a non-military program. Its purpose is to assure knowledgeable, organized, and orderly mutual emergency helpfulness in all areas of human needs. We cannot afford to be unprepared in the event of a crippling disaster to administer to our fellow being in need of medical care, to provide food, water, emergency housing, and other necessities to preserve life, including guidance and leadership in avoiding injury and death from radioactive fallout and other forms of disastrous contamination. May I now present our Civil Defense Director, Major General Robert E. Condon.
This is your Civil Defense Director, Robert E. Condon, speaking to you from the New York City Civil Defense Mobile Control Center in Times Square, New York City. A system devised by the broadcasting industry and the Federal Communications Commission to prohibit an enemy from using regular radio signals as directional guides. CONELRAD at 640 or 1240 on the dial of all AM radios will permit the broadcast of official civil defense information and instructions to the public and civil defense personnel during an actual emergency. We are now in the midst of a 3-day civil defense training exercise being conducted throughout the nation. It is called Operation Alert 1961. The New York City Civil Defense Forces are mobilized at civil defense control and report centers throughout the entire city as part of the Civil Defense Advanced Training Non-Military Exercise. New York City's 733 Civil Defense air raid warnings just sounded the 3-minute long wobbling sound of the take cover signal. Everyone is now expected to be in refuge shelter area. In these unpredictable times, we must be prepared for any eventuality. We must be prepared to cope with the effects of an attack that could occur in a matter of minutes or the devastation resulting from other major disasters. The civil defense preparedness should include the following survival measures. Have ready your family fallout shelter and equip it with 2 weeks' supply of food and water, a first aid kit, and a battery-operated radio. Learn the civil defense air raid warning signals and what they mean. Learn how to protect yourself, your family, and your children from the effect of radioactive fallout. Learn first aid and home emergency preparedness. Learn to use CONELRAD, the emergency broadcast to which you are now listening, for official civil defense directives. Please Stay tuned for further civil defense information.